Hey, hello everyone. It's hang on. I've been noticing that recently my VTube studio keeps getting really weird all of a sudden. But anyways, hey guys, it's me, Naven Gaming here. There's a bit of a post-production video being made before you get to the actual video itself. So I did not actually. I forgot to mention this in the very beginning half of the video. So because it was a bit of an impromptu video idea, just like, hey, you know what? Hackman released a new video about why Space Marines 2 is so awesome. Maybe I should make a reaction video out of that. Just to have an excuse to shoot the shit a little bit and see where it goes. Yeah, well, that little bit turned in from being like, oh, a slight discussion here and there about a 23-minute video about why Space Marines 2 was so awesome to shooting up to an hour and 30 minutes. Okay, I really shot the shit with this one, but anyways, it's yeah, you're in for a bit of a ride here. I tend to sidequest and digress quite often, but nonetheless, here we are. And a bit of I guess there's also a bit of a disclaimer too. I do mention some things in the video that is might be I wouldn't say it's not something you couldn't find on your own, but I did mention some things that might be a bit disturbing for some audiences if you're if you're that easily disturbed by some things, even just mentioning like terrible things that might happen to people. But it's like just a little bit of an extra buffer there because I don't know how YouTube's going to feel about my video. And I also don't know if there's anything I could say to really deflect any whatever nonsense that video, YouTube could probably come down by just merely mentioning um, very, very troubling subject matters such as hard R-ing people, but you get my point. At any case, please go support the original content. The Axeman is a great channel, and I am someone who likes to watch people who make great content, and I think the Axeman makes a lot of great content. I think he has an opinion on just about anything that I think you can honestly say is fairly enough pretty based. It's a pretty based take. I think he's a very reasonable guy. I don't think he overshoots his shot or jumps the shark, proverbially speaking, when it comes to opinions. I think he has a pretty sound mind and a very sound logic to why he thinks and feels about certain things. And I think that everyone could probably channel a bit of that into their daily life. And, if there's someone I think you could watch that might have a better opinion on the matter of why Space Marines 2 is so good, especially, because he's also got editing on his side and can actually eloquently, enunciate and talk his points and get his points across, you know, I would recommend the Axeman. He's also a lot different from most other content creators and streamers by just the fact that, when he makes content, it's because the content is worth making, right? If there's a problem so that's topical, then he'll make a video about it. If there's a game that he's really interested in, he'll make a video about it. Just go watch the guy. And especially if you're gonna watch my video about the why Space Marines 2 is so awesome, I would recommend you don't even do that. I recommend you go ahead and just click off right now and go watch his content first before you watch mine. Go support the original release. Go support the guy who made the video. All right, don't watch some random shitter on the internet who's just gonna have his own opinions and his own sort of like take about the Ackman's take about why Space Marines 2 is so awesome. Just go watch the content yourself and then come back. Or don't come back at all. Or don't even watch his content or my content. I don't care. Sky's the limit for you fuckers. You people can do whatever the fuck you want. I can't tell you what you can and can't do. Just do whatever the hell you want to do. But either way, please go support the original content. The guy does great work. I think he has great takes about some of the bigger controversies or sticking points that have plagued the gaming community over the years. And I think that a lot of people can do with a little bit of that sensibleness, a little bit of that common decency on the internet. Well, I won't say decency, but certainly that level of common sensibility. Just like thinking not like an idiot or like someone who's been terminally online for several years. But anyways, that's all I have to say. This is just supposed to be a little light buffer for this intro, and a little introduction to the video. But anyways, go support the original video, and thank you all so much for watching this video, and let's get back to it, shall we? All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Naven Gaming, where today we are doing something a little different from my usual content again. This time, instead of making a weird little, I guess, argumentative essay sort of thesis on my ideas and means of writing as an amateur writer, very amateur, I decided to do something a little different this time around. This time I decided, you know what? I don't usually, I usually criticize a lot of media. At least personally I do. I don't really show that a whole lot well, maybe I do actually. I don't know. I don't pay attention to every little thing that I mention during videos, but I do try to actually know. Yeah, now that I think about it, I have been a little bit critical of things as of late. Anyways, point being, I've always been critical of media. I've always been critical of media. I've been critical of a lot of media. You know, there's just a lot of crap out there. And it's annoying that some great franchises are noticeably crappier because they hire a bunch of idiots to essentially make the content. I mean, who likes to consume anything made by people who don't really seem to understand fundamentally what that thing is, right? And, you know, I was kind of interested to see some commentary around Space Marines 2, because I'm still playing Space Marines 2, you know, like in the background of me making videos about other things, I'm still gaming. In fact, I'd say gaming takes up more time for me than most things, because, you know, like I work for a living, you know, like when I get home, what's the first thing I want to do? I want to fucking game. I want to game and get my mind off of things until I pass out, right? Well, I thought, you know, I've seen everyone's opinions on Space Marines 2, I feel like. I've seen a lot of people's opinions on Space Marines 2. I feel like I've even seen some chats and other streamers' opinions on Space Marines 2. Well, let's see what the Actman has to say about Space Marines 2. And now, the Actman, he's a very popular YouTuber. He's a guy who has about almost 2 million subscribers. You know, like, he's a guy who's very critical of a lot of topic points around video games. Topping points. You know, he's a very topical channel that talks about all kinds of things, ranging from the latest controversies to the stupid things that the internet wants to bitch about. So, I think that if there was anyone who could probably have an interesting opinion about why is Space Marine 2 so awesome, you know, might as well see it from the guy himself. Probably the very face of well, topical gaming discussions that isn't just, well, Asmongold and a few other people, right? So, without further ado, let's just go ahead, just get right into it, shall we? I am going to adjust the volume because I did test it out a little bit, and I thought it was a little loud. We'll put it here for a bit. See how that works, right? All right, let's get started in 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Make no mistake. War is coming. With all its glory. And all its horror. Mr. Findley, your freedom awaits.
Hell, it's about time.
Oh yeah, let me get myself out of the way there.
Guns, muscles, killing. Sometimes that's all it takes to satisfy the monkey brain that resides in the skulls of all men. Deep down, we crave combat. We yearn for war. Hammer. And that's why we create and play war games, so men can satiate their inner bloodlust in a healthy way. Civilization doesn't really value violence the same way it used to, and we don't really have any safe outlets to satisfy these cravings. And that's where Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 comes in. It's a game that blends the most...
He's not wrong. He really isn't. Warhammer is one of those games that really channels the not only the art of war, but the coolness factor of it. Like, we know that Star Wars is a space opera, right? And that it has the tendency to be, simultaneously the most hopeful and yet sometimes a bit cheesy. But it's all done in a family-friendly manner. But Warhammer is the type of franchise that's just like, but what if we made that grittier? What if we made that grim dark? What if we made Space Wars something to behold? What if the coolness factor wasn't the lightsaber fights? What if the coolness factor wasn't the sci-fi setting itself, but the amount of bullshit you can get away with by putting your war epic in a sci-fi fantasy spacefaring, setting with people in big bulky suits of armor leading the helm on some of the biggest fucking unified war fronts that the galaxy has ever seen in any type of setting ever. Just really tall dudes, just big old bulky armor. It just speaks to something just innately cool in most people, I would argue. And that's kind of the biggest thing that kind of put me off about it too, was that the big bulky armor looks kind of dumb, right? But then you see other variations of the armor, and you're like, wait. Maybe this isn't actually that stupid. I mean, Space Marines 2 is probably by far, I thought Space Hulk Deathwing was kind of dumb, right? I've seen images of it. I've seen other games with, Warhammer 40k Space Marines on them. And I thought, these guys look kind of dumb, right? These guys look kind of dumb. They kind of look like walking fridges. But then you actually look at Space Marines, the first game, and you're like, yeah, this is still kind of dumb. And then you look at Space Marines 2, and it's like, there's just something about this that speaks to me, right? There's just something about the armor design, the coolness factor, the level of detail, and the fact that there's actually a bit more gravitas and creativity about the armor than there is typically in most other Warhammer games, at least that I've seen on the box art, right? Titus wears probably the cooler looking armors of all the Space Marines featured in this game. And if this was made by any other company, they would have just slapped on basic bitch armor and would have called it a day, right? No, they made Titus stand out. They even made his companion stand out. Even the captain, who is just an NPC, he stands out simply because, he just looks... I mean, he just looks badass, but, they add details. They made everyone look different. And that's the coolest part about this game, is that it makes everybody look cool and varied, The armor looks varied. You didn't think the armor could be varied. I didn't even know people didn't have to wear the Mega Man boots. I thought the Mega Man boots was just a standard thing. No, the Mega Man boots are just a feature. There are different types of this armor. And I'm like, damn, I wish they would show that off more. But yeah, he's got a point. A very good point, I would argue.
Masculine traits of our favorite video game franchises into one. It combines the glory kills and intensity of Doom with the strength and toughness of Gears of War. Of course, Warhammer predates both of those franchises, so, respect your elders. But these games serve as relevant examples that gamers unfamiliar with Warhammer...
He's not wrong. Warhammer is one of those games where it is probably the granddaddy of all space epics, especially ones that focus heavily on war. It's like, I'm pretty sure this particular franchise has inspired more companies and more creatives and more developers than probably most other franchises to date. I think even Star Wars, to some extent, from what I've heard, was inspired somewhat by this franchise. Which, if that's the truth, goddamn. I mean, this thing's a very monolithic franchise. It's very influential. It's probably one of the oldest granddads that we have. And so that's why it kind of kills me to think that there could be people out there who want to come into this and then just ruin it. Just fucking ruin it. For what? Money? For clout? Yeah, for both. That's the most disappointing part. They want to come in and ruin it for both reasons. That genuinely irks me.
Respect your elders. But these games serve as relevant examples that gamers unfamiliar with Warhammer can easily relate to and get an understanding of what Space Marine 2 is all about.
You know, I just realized maybe I should turn on captions too. I don't know if captions matters to anyone, but I will turn them on. Alright.
Warhammer can easily relate to and get an understanding.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back a little bit further.
An intensity of Doom with the strength and toughness of Gears of War. Of course, Warhammer predates both of those franchises, so, you know, respect your elders. But these games serve as relevant examples that gamers unfamiliar with Warhammer can easily relate to and get an understanding of what Space Marine 2 is all about. And this is what it's all about.
This is amazing! I feel incredible! Yes, 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 yes! I can win! I feel great! I can do this! Ugh.
It's all me. I did all of this. All me. All me. I'm the best. Playing Space Marine 2, I was thrown back in time to the days of the OG Xbox and 360. This type of game has become a rarity in the era of modern gaming. It reminds me of...
God, he is so not wrong. This game felt like a breath of fresh fucking air. It truly did. Like, it felt about as much of a fresh air as The Witcher did when it first hit the scene. It's like, oh, Witcher 3? Well, I guess I'll try playing some of the older games before I jump into this one. It looks kind of interesting enough. You know, and then I played the second one because I couldn't get the first one because I didn't have a PC at the time. And so I was like, okay, I'll just play the fucking first one on my 360. And then I played the first one. I mean, not the first one, the second one. And then I'm like, I don't really care for the combat and the gameplay too much, but at least it's interesting. I think if they were to refine a lot of these mechanics, because they're all very, very fucking clunky, they would have a pretty interesting franchise and idea. I didn't stay for the gameplay, but I did stay for the story. And that's the point that I also want to make, is that a good story can keep you going even through the toughest of challenges, including the gameplay variation of challenges. Shitty gameplay can easily be compensated when the vibes and the story are just so on point. You know, you cannot underestimate the power of just good feel, right? Just good story, beat, and feel, you know?
Republic Commando, a shooter with a relatively the Xbox and 360. This type of game has become a rarity in the era of modern gaming. It reminds me of Republic Commando, a shooter with a relatively simple concept, created more in service of its fan base than anything else. These titles explore a specific era of an existing universe and add immense depth to it, depth that may not have been there before. Space Marine 2 and Republic Commando are games that respect your time. You can play them over the weekend, beat them, and say, man, that was fucking awesome. That didn't need to be anything more than what it was. And I miss that. And they included wacky multiplayers that weren't trying to be the next esports juggernaut. Space Marine 2 makes no attempt to please or appeal.
You know, he actually has a point there, doesn't he? They're both very similar types of games, but I would say that Republic Commando is not a game you can beat over a weekend. I mean, just speaking from experience, I don't think you can beat Republic Commando over a weekend. Not that I don't think it's doable, but it's just that I don't think you could play Republic Commando the same way you could play this game and have... I mean, you could have a good time playing Republic Commando, but you play Republic Commando specifically for the challenge and the story, as well as just, like, the coolness factor of just being, like, an elite squad of clone troopers. But it's like, I don't necessarily see that as something you could beat over a weekend unless you're doing it with a couple of friends, right? But there's no co-op campaign, so that's not really something you can actually do. Anyways, my point being, you know, Republic Commando, a bit iffy about that particular example, but he's got a good point. He's got a very interesting point.
The next esports juggernaut. Space Marine 2 makes no attempt to please or appeal to a broader audience. Instead, it appeals to the audience that's already there. What a concept. They
chose the smart decision, guys. They chose the smart decision oh, what could we do? Maybe we can expand our audience pool, you know? Maybe we can like make characters or add insert characters that don't really matter and have no real bearing to the overall plot, right? Or and still please the older ones, right? No, let's not do that either. Let's just shovel all of the fan favorite characters and replace them with new ones, you know? Give them unique identities, something that's topical, something that people can relate to the modern era, and especially a lot of the things that people really care about, like all of these issues and all of these particular political issues, because, you know, young people are pretty down and hip with the political issues, as well as the weird gender, like... the hyper-gender specific shit that is constantly shoveled in people's faces on a daily basis, you know. I think people are more interested in those discussions, right? Right? They're more interested in those discussions.
More importantly, Space Marine 2 appeals to the audience that's already there. What a concept. More importantly, Space Marine 2 stays true to the original. And that's remarkable given the 13-year gap between the first and the second.
13 years, goddamn. That really was a 10-year period. But it's true. You know, and it's funny, too, because I would be looking at some people talk about this game, and they would say, like, man, I remember when I was a Warhammer fan back in the day, and the only real game that I had that really, truly gave me that feel of being a fucking Astartes, running around in big, bulky armor, being cool as fuck, was playing as Titus in Space Marines 1. I played the shit out of that game, and I'm like, really? That's a pretty passable game. I don't know why you would think that that would be fun. And then I go, you know, especially after I played it, I'm like, you know, I can see why people might like this game, but it's not that fun. At least not as far as what I'm used to. And, you know, like, it's a 10-year-old game, and this was right before I played Space Marines 2. And so I was like, you know, I don't really have a whole lot of expectations for Space Marines 2, but Space Marines 1 at least gives me the idea that this could be a pretty interesting like hack and slash beat 'em up type shooter experience. So, you know, why the fuck not? You know, like I wouldn't mind playing a game as like this as long as it's cool, right? As long as it's cool, it plays well, you know, it's at least fun, right? At least it's fun to play. Boy, was it fucking fun to play. But yeah.
Original. And that's remarkable given the 13-year gap between the first and the second. The word that comes to my mind is pure. Space Marine 2 is a pure game, in the sense that you pay for it, it's complete, and there's no bullshit. It's an experience with a clear focus and a refined goal. And if you want to play something that's going to put some hair on your chest, this is the game for you. Now, I always try to take an analytical approach with my game reviews, but let's face it, fellas, sometimes that's exhausting. I don't always want to have to analyze game mechanics and explain why it's awesome, or talk about the narrative on a deeper level. Why can't I just point at the cool shit and be like, that's cool? It's like, are you always in the mood to solve a Rubik's Cube? No. Chainsaw on sword, neuron activation. But there's something refreshing about the simple pleasures in Space Marine 2. Oh yeah, oh, that was pretty fucking sick. I think the recent failure of Concord and many other live service titles has served as a constant warning to developers and publishers that, hey, you don't always have to spend $400 million to make money. You can make smaller games with a lower budget, less people working on it.
Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 dev says big budget games are failing in part because teams are over-scoping their projects. You know, he's not wrong. That is a true fact. You know, like, if you just stick with making a good game and have a reasonable budget to make it, it's not impossible. It's entirely doable. You know, I don't know why AAA companies need to have this obsession over, oh, we need to give this game the highest quality graphics humanly possible. We need to make sure that these polygons pop, right? We need to make sure that all of these models, these characters, this art design is on point. We need to make sure that this thing has many McFucking game modes. It has like 13 different gameplay loops. You know, like, we don't need that shit. We really don't. Can you imagine 13 different gameplay loops and like 20 different game modes? That's just fucking insane. Anyways, point being, you don't need to have a shit ton of content to make the game good, and you certainly don't need to make it graphically intensive if you're just going to focus on making like the best game of all time, right? You can make a pretty decent looking game with, just basic bitch graphics. You don't need to overextend yourself to make the highest budget game possible and then let that shit fail when it turns out that you didn't have enough time to do just about anything you wanted to do. Right? It's stupid. It's so fucking stupid. I don't know why companies think that's a fun idea. But you know what? I'm not the one making the decisions. Unlike them, I like my money. So, there. There you fucking have it.
Developers and publishers that, hey, you don't always have to spend $400 million to make money. You can make smaller games with a lower budget, less people working on them, a more tight-knit team. So much of the AAA developers and publishers feel like they're trying to make every game become the next Overwatch, the next Fortnite, when they should just be trying to make the next fun video game. Space Marines 2, huh?
So that's it, huh? We some kind of Space Marine
2.
Space Marine 2 may be part of the massive Warhammer 40k universe in one of countless games, but there really are no barriers to entry. Anyone who's a fan of third-person shooters should play this game. It's not trying to be one of those live service titles that expects you to make playing it your second job. And I respect that. Trying to understand the lore of 40k, now that's a second job. Who's the
You're not wrong.
Warhammer 40k universe?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yes. Everyone.
I'm learning so much about the lore. Space.
He's not wrong. There's a lot of shitheads in this universe. I've come to learn a lot of shitheads. Even the supposed good guys are shitheads. I mean, one of the loyalists on the Emperor's side is a literal Mongolian, so there's that. I believe there's also a fucking a Space Marine faction that, if I remember this correctly, they are the most edgiest Space Marine successor chapter that has ever successed, right? They're clearly written to be edgelords because they are, from what I understand, they're brutal than most other Marines. They wear jet black, and at least I think if I remember that correctly, I only heard this briefly, but one of the interesting things that they do to recoup their numbers is that they not only invade and pillage other worlds, which is why I'm pretty sure they're like a Chaos Legion, but anyways, the point is, or a Traitor Legion. But anyways, again, they raid and pillage other worlds. They basically force govern over them, or something like that, or maybe they just destroy them. I don't know. But what I do know is that one of the things they do for absolute facts, because it's highlighted in most of the discussions around them, is that they literally go to these worlds, they kidnap some of the women there, they drag them into their ships, haul them off to God knows wherever the fuck their HQ is, and then they will rape them, brutalize them, essentially. Not really brutalize them. Actually, can I even say the R word on this? Anyways, they do the hard R to them, and after they do that kind of thing, they then move on to doing using them for more of that to produce more Space Marine candidates, and then when they outlive their usefulness, that's where the butchering comes in. The brutality comes in. I don't know what else to tell you other than that, yeah. This is the dark fantasy of all time. Dark space fantasy of all time.
Yes. Everyone.
I'm learning so much about the lore. Space Marine 2 is a sequel to the original hack and slash game from 2011, and it takes place in the grim, dark Warhammer 40k universe. You play as Johnny Space Marine. Hi, I'm Jonathan Heresy, and welcome to Jackass. On a quest to prove he is not a traitor or a heretic in the eyes of Sigmar, as you travel from planet to planet, annihilating any aliens you encounter. Now this is...
Wait a minute. Okay, maybe this is a stupid question, but who the fuck is Sigmar? Who the fuck is Sigmar? Is that an actual 40k character, or is he making a weird reference? I don't know. I'll leave that one up to you guys.
Sigmar, as you travel from planet to planet, annihilating any aliens you encounter. Now, this is the third Warhammer game I've played, and I only have the faintest idea of what's happening in this universe. And that's fine. I know nothing of the lore. All I know is I must in this universe. And that's fine. I know nothing of the lore. All I know is I must kill, and good soldiers follow orders. Between this and Helldivers, I've really been enjoying the whole vibe of becoming a killing machine with unquestionable loyalty to this thing or concept you only vaguely understand. The Emperor, I don't even know his name, but I will kill for him. What's commendable about Space Marine 2 is that you don't need to be an expert in 40k lore in order to get it. Of course, lore supremacists will be able to appreciate the setting, environment, art direction, and narrative on a level that casual gamers won't, but you're not locked out from enjoying what Space Marine 2 has to offer. Regardless, I'm sure if I get something incorrect, the hardcore 40k fans will mercilessly fact-check me in the comments. So anyway, Space Marine 2 is a huge ripoff of...
So, I haven't had that problem quite yet, but, you know, I may just end up having that problem at some point. I don't mind being corrected when I'm wrong, but don't be dicks about it. I mean, that's the most anyone could ask of anybody, right? Just don't be a dick about it. You know, just be like, hey, this character is actually this character. You know, like, that's not actually how this character, how this works. That's not actually what it sounds like. This isn't actually the thing that he is saying. This isn't what you think it is. You know, whatever the fuck. You know, just like if you wanna fact check, then go ahead and fact check me. But it's like, you know, again, just don't be a dick about it. You know, just be nice about it. You know, don't be an asshole. You can get through life a lot easier if you attempt to make friends more so than you're an asshole to most people, right? Just don't be a dick about it.
Will mercilessly fact-check me in the comments. So anyway, Space Marine 2 is a huge ripoff of StarCraft, which released in 1977 for the Atari Wii. Warhammer was actually created as a spin-off to StarCraft, but then became its own franchise, and the similarities are pretty obvious. You even fight Zerglings and Hydralisks. I mean, how much more obvious could it be? It's shameless, really. Okay, I'm done. So in Space Marine 2, you play as Jim Raynor.
Okay, that was a bit. I was about to say, I think you have that backwards. I'm pretty sure it was StarCraft that was the ripoff of 40k, not the other way. I was kind of questioning that there for a second, just like, wait, what? Oh my god. Yeah, he had me going there for a second, just like, wait a minute, no, that goes contrary to everything else I've just heard. What are you talking about? What do you mean Atari? What does Atari have to do with this? I thought Atari went bankrupt. What are you talking about? It's like, no, I'm taking it literal. He's just memeing. He's just memeing. He's just memeing, Nathan. He's just memeing.
Yes, could it be? It's shameless, really. Okay, I'm done. So in Space Marine 2, you play as Jim Raynor. Forgive me. Like I said, Warhammer is a franchise with a...
No, I'm sorry. He meant Henry Cavill. He meant, like, the more normal-looking, older-looking Henry Cavill. He really does. He looks like Henry Cavill. Just a little bit. Like, he didn't look like that in the first Space Marines game, but he kind of does in this one. He looks like an older, much more, like, he looks like an older, less handsome version of Henry Cavill.
A very long story. Forgive me. Like I said, Warhammer is a franchise with a very long storied history and a massive dedicated fan base. And one of the more impressive things about Space Marine 2 is when you compare the factions, the armor to some of the figurines. From what I'm seeing, this is basically a perfect adaptation of the art and style of the 40k universe. We've seen how fan bases react when the armor design is not up to snuff.
I mean, you can't look at that armor and tell me that that is the fucking Spartan power armor. You cannot look at that and tell me that is Spartan power armor. You can't, Act Man. You can't tell me that. You cannot tell me that. Look, 343 was in its experimental phase, and from what I understand, they are going through a rebranding right now, and I think they've given up on Halo entirely. And you know what? That's a sad shame, because, you know, Infinite wasn't too bad, but what they've done to the multiplayer is questionable. But, you know, they certainly tried, and I gotta say, I was left wanting most of the time, but, you know, like, it's a tough challenge, you know? Like, we're talking about the 3 big games that was the Halo trilogy of games. And then they made 4, which was alright. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was at least the start of something new, right? I mean, they went from making 3 mainstay titles to then making spin-off games and among other things, subsequent other media, right? You know, it became a massive franchise over, you know, like, just by the nature that it's fucking great. Like, it's good. But here's the problem with, you know, with the fucking game is that, you know, like, the games that came out after that just were, they went to sci-fi, which was already kind of weird, but then they also changed up certain elements of, like, characterization and story, where it's just like, I don't know if this is how this character would respond to this situation, but they were at least very on point to where, like, you could believably imagine that this character in this situation would probably behave like this. You know, like, they didn't character assassinate, you know, so much so as they just, like, they were, I just don't think Chief would take a screaming sergeant in his face, a screaming admiral in his face that seriously. Especially after all the shit he's been through and all the shit that he's seen. You know, like, I don't think he would listen to a fucking whiny little Teletubby who just likes to bitch and moan about everything and sits comfortably in a fucking ship most of the time, barking orders. I'm just saying. I don't think he'd take it. And he didn't take it, necessarily, but he did, you know, kind of listen to it. But anyways, yeah, that's neither here or there. I'm getting a little lost in that sauce. You get the point, though. It's like, that isn't Spartan armor. How does this look like Spartan armor to you? It's not. It's not Spartan armor, alright? This is not Spartan armor. I don't care if, like, they had a massive upgrade in technology over the years. This is not Spartan armor to me. This is... And it's also the least... It is the least protective thing I've seen. Like, no, you have to understand. We have to preface this, okay? The shields are one thing. But the fact that you're just wearing a big-ass suit and bits of armor plating, you know, like, that's another thing entirely. And, you know, Chief wears bits of armor plating, but his covers a good portion of his overall body. This armor covers, like, only small portions of your body. You might be lucky enough to get a goddamn jock strap, you know, just to protect yourself against in case an elite decides he wants to, you know, he wants his hoof to get very comfortably, you know, burrowed into your sphincter, you know, and like among other things, you know, it's like you need to have the extra protection, man. You just do. You need to have that extra coverage, and this armor does not look like it's very protective at all. Like, can you look at this, the thickness of this armor? I'm sorry, I'm in the fucking way, but I just need you to look at this. I need you to understand this, all right? And my VTube studio is having an aneurysm. I'm sorry, but anyways, please move. There we go. All right. You cannot look at this armor, and you cannot expect me to believe that this right here, this is thick enough to protect you. Get that shit out of here. This can't protect anybody. It also looks like plastic. In fact, most of these look like plastic models. All right? Maybe I'm being a little too critical and harsh at this point, but it's like, This is not Spartan armor, and it doesn't look protective in the slightest. It doesn't even look cool. I mean, it looks kind of cool, but it doesn't look that cool, you know? It looks like, let's just throw whatever idea we can come up with for armor design in here and call it a day. Anyways, that's enough of that. Moving on.
Or is not accurate. React when the armor design is not up to snuff or is not accurate to the franchise. But there's something very masculine about a game that doesn't ask much of your brain, just your reflexes, your instincts, and your propensity for violence. Space Marine 2 is able to establish the interesting universe of 40K and immerse you within the setting without resorting to shoveling pages and pages of exposition and lore dumps down your throat. Probably could have benefited with some type of in-game codex system, but regardless, in my Gears of War review, I talked about how the game has weight. In its scale, in the sounds of the footsteps, in the executions, and all of that is true for Space Marine as well, but it's somehow been amped up. You could substitute Space Marine 2's soundtrack with that of Gears of War, and it would fit perfectly. Because I felt these similarities to Gears of War, one of my first questions was, how do I take cover? To which someone in chat responded, brother, you are the cover.
He's not wrong. You are the cover. You're a Space Marine. You don't take cover behind shit. You are the cover. You run into that shit and you beat the crap out of everything because you are the cover, bro. All right? Just like when certain women of varying ethnicities will sit there and be like, I am the title. You know, like, it's like, that's a fucking meme and a half, let me tell you. But anyways, it's like, when they're like, I am the title, you know, like, this is Space Marine equivalence of being like, I am the cover, you know? It's the same, similar vibe, not necessarily the same, I don't know if it's, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's the same comparison, but same point, right? You know, like, it's true. You are the cover, all right? You are the center point. You are the action in this scenario, all right? You are the one getting shit done. Anyways, no, we're done. Moving on. I've already side-quested and digressed enough.
Space Marines don't crouch, eh? Bonded, brother, you are the cover. Space Marines don't crouch, eh? Crouching is cowardice. No cover, no crouch. Brother, you are the cover. And I couldn't have said it better myself. And that really goes to show that Space Marine 2 is somehow a step up in manliness from Gears of War, because cover is for pussies. And after saying that, Gears of War fans watching this are scrambling to find meaning in their life.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, man.
You can dodge.
I mean, just play Space Marines 2. I mean, if you really like the Brotherhood of Gears of War, you know, Space Marines 2 often gets compared to Gears of War. You might as well should just play Space Marines 2. And hell, if you don't like, no, I mean, if you don't, yeah, actually, if you don't like Space Marines 2, there are plenty of other games in this franchise you could probably get involved in. You know, like, we have RTSs among other things, you know. We even have Darktide, which is just Vermintide, but it's made, you know, by the same people who made Vermintide. Anyways, it's like a Left 4 Dead game. You know, the sky's the limit, okay, with this fucking franchise. Just fucking find a game, pick it out. If it's in your favorite genre, take it, play it, tell me what you think of it. It's literally the easiest thing you can do. And again, Space Marines 2 is only compared to Gears of War because of that particular vibe. It's like, my brother in Christ, there is a lot of other things happening, but yes, I can see what you mean, alright? So if you're a Gears fan and you're someone who genuinely is feeling a little perturbed by the fact that Gears hasn't been the same since the 3rd installment or the 4th installment or whatever installment, okay? I just want you to know that there are other games that you can, and other games, other franchises you can get into that basically fulfill that same need, particularly this one, especially if you focus on the Space Marines, because they're all about that brotherhood, my guy. They're all about that brotherhood. They're all about killing things. They're all about trying to survive in a galaxy that fucking hates you, okay? Same vibe, same shit, just a different coat of paint. Alright? Alright? Enough said. We're done. Moving on.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, man.
You can dodge and roll, but you're not hiding from your enemies. The act of hiding from your enemies is cowardly, and I think that speaks volumes about the culture of the Terran society, of the Ultramarine society. You're wearing this gargantuan armor and you're 10 feet tall for a reason. Within the context of the 40k universe, it makes sense that the Space Marines don't take cover, and the game isn't trying to replicate Gears of War. But within the context of a video game, it does feel like maybe there's something missing, some crucial aspect of strategy. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it just means you're always in the thick of combat. You don't have to think through many encounters or plan your movements, there's not many branching paths, and you don't strategize much of anything, and maybe that's the point. You're a fucking Space Marine. These guys are comically huge compared to even Gears of War characters. And yet it doesn't feel like it's overtly cartoony. Space Marines are built tough, Ford tough. Their foes tremble at the sound of their footsteps. These badass motherfuckers are so strong, you don't even have to shoot certain enemies to kill them. Just run into them like A-Train, and they're dead. It illustrates what an unstoppable force you are meant to be, and you truly feel like that. It's like these guys aren't even worth looking at, let alone wasting ammo on. From my understanding, Space Marines are like the Navy.
It's so fucking true. You could just mow a whole swath of humanoid units just by running into them. I've demonstrated that plenty of times even in my own videos. It's like, goddamn. You know, you can't possibly get a better picture of just how fucking outclassed these enemies are compared to you. At least most things are compared to you. It's so fucking funny just how great Space Marines 2 actually is in terms of like selling you on like that gritty yet like very daunting sort, like it gives you a decent enough challenge, but it still fulfills that same level of euphoric power fantasy that people want to feel in games. It's not Dark Souls by any means, but it is a fun-ass game. It's like pulling off the perfect combo in Devil May Cry. It's like pulling off like the coolest fucking shit you could possibly think of in like any type of sports or racing game, right? You know, like it's the coolest pass, the coolest move, the coolest drift, you know, like it's same shit but in an action game, and you're a fucking Space Marine. You're basically a giant fridge whose entire job it is to kill everything in front of you. I mean, and you do it, and you can do it very, very well, or just not at all. It's the best part of the game. All right. Again, it's the same shit. All right. Fun ass game. It's something I would recommend anyone would play.
Worth looking at, let alone wasting ammo on. From my understanding, Space Marines are like the Navy SEALs of Warhammer. You call these guys in when shit hits the fan. Some view them as angels, but they don't bring salvation, they bring punishment. And if they come to your planet, chances are you're fucked. There's a lot someone like me can infer about the Warhammer universe and the Space Marines and the culture without knowing it myself. Space Marine 2 is a co-op third-person shooter. You play as Titus, and two of your friends can play as Gadriel and Chiron. This is one of those games where you can play solo, but you'll get a lot more out of it if two of your friends join in on the mayhem.
It's so true, which is why when I proposed to my friends, hey, do you want to play Space Marines 2? You know, like, they were like a bit mad at first, but then when I was like, okay, fine, fuck it then. Do you want to play Space Marines 2 or Darktide? I'm willing to sport you some money to get either one. Which one do you prefer? And they were like, well, I've seen you play a lot of Space Marines 2, so, I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards that, and so I'm just like, okay, in that case, let me frame it a different way, alright? Do you want to play Left 4 Dead 2 with a lot more content and shit to do, or do you want to play fucking, I don't know, fucking some, like, a hack and slash beat 'em up type game that fulfills all of your baser power fantasies and has a great story about brotherhood or some shit, you know? Like, I basically was just like, or I was like, do you want to play a cinematic action spectacle about brotherhood? That's essentially around the lines that I used when I described it to them. And they're just like, you know, when you put it like that, maybe I'm leaning more towards Darktide. I knew one of them was going to, and I knew another one of them was just like, okay, but can you like tell me more about the game? It's just like, sure, yeah. So Space Marines 2 has all of these different things. Can you customize it? Yeah, you can customize it. It's like, okay. Do any of the customizations have any benefits? No, not really. I mean, like all you're doing is just specing your character. You're just building up the class. You're also upgrading the weapons themselves. You know, like I was showing them the ropes, basically, of what you'd be doing in operations, since that's most likely going to be the thing we're going to focus on as soon as we're done with the fucking short-ass campaign, right? And the funniest thing that resulted from this was literally, we ended up getting Darktide. Well, I ended up getting them Darktide, but you know, like I got them Darktide, and we started playing through that. But I'm, you know, like even now, I'm still like, man, this game would be fun to play with some friends. It's just a good game, god damn it. You know, like this would be a game I would absolutely propose that you and your mates play. You know, if they're not interested in like any other game, just like, yeah, this would be just a fun like little thing to do, and every mission is like 30 minutes to an hour long. It's like you can literally just do one mission and just call it a night if you wanted to. It's not a big deal, you know. And it's a absolute banger. It's a fun thing to do in your spare time with the mates.
So I have 4 studs. A lot more out of it if 2 of your friends join in on the mayhem. So I have 4 studs. So I'm a 4-star general of basedness. I'm a 4-star Chad.
He only has one, so he's a bit of a soy boy.
Co-op shooters are typically either 2 or 4 player, never 3. That's an interesting choice in and of itself, and it separates Space Marine 2 from a lot of other co-op shooters. Teamwork is not all that important or emphasized in the campaign. Rarely do you have to communicate with your buddies about tackling certain objectives or holding down certain sight lines and positions. It's not like Left 4 Dead or Vermintide, where some enemies can incapacitate you and it requires a teammate to help out. So it's a much more casual approach to co-op shooters, and I like that simplicity.
Well, yeah, because you know you are the solution. Again, to going back to gameplay mechanics and you know executing lore and among other things, you know, in gameplay you feel like a walking like 8-ton juggernaut, just going through all of your problems with fucking giant guns and flamers. You know, well, melta rifle specifically, but you get the point, right? It's a great game. Certainly, if it feels that level of fantasy, but it's like there's definitely no coordination. I will agree with them on that. The most you really have to do is just point out where the ammo is. If you don't need the ammo, then don't take the ammo. You know, leave it for somebody who actually does need the goddamn ammo. You know, be a bit mindful when you play. You know, like, and you know, just like pay attention to how many stim packs people have, because people do need the Medicaid as well. And, you know, you can also check that just by hitting the tab button or whatever your select or options button is on your controller, right? It's the same thing. Or your back button on your controller is the same thing. You know, like, just be mindful, pay attention, be aware of where everybody's at, and just get to slaughtering. You know? That's just the only thing you need to focus on. Otherwise, you don't need to fucking talk to anyone. You don't even need to communicate. You could just ping everything to people and that'd be it.
Help out. So it's a much more casual approach to co-op shooters, and I like that simplicity. That said, the lack of teamwork does feel like a missed opportunity. Space Marine 2 is a simple but delicious recipe of hack and slash and third-person shooter. Like I said, there's not much thought or strategy to the game, and that's fine. Sometimes I want to turn my brain off and just enjoy mindless action, or watch the first Transformers movie, which is the only good Transformers movie.
Debatable. I will debate with you on that one. The first Transformers movie was certainly passable, but it was still plagued with a lot of the same old fucking with the same little Michael Bay-isms. Like, it's like you have Michael Bay jokes here and there. You have dumb shits. You have all this other stuff. You have weird graphical things here and there. Well, maybe not graphical things, but there's also explosions, like a shit ton of explosions. Like, they substitute a lot of plot, which is like, look at this explosion. Boom! It's why Michael Bay is so known for it. It's like, my brother in Christ, can you please just focus on telling a more unique or interesting story with this? Or can you just be faithful to the material a little bit more? Like, you could easily substitute the places where you're lacking with just, like, material from, like, the actual franchise itself. And mind you, like, the biggest problem that people have with the Transformers movies, at least from the fans, according to them, is that it's just not, like, it's not as good as, like, well, I mean, it's like a one-for-one for, like, the other ones. It's like, well, yeah. Of course, it's not a one-for-one like the other ones. I think there's just some certain decisions that Michael Bay made that just kind of feels like it doesn't make any sense. You know, just like I think one thing that probably, I guess, would be like kind of jumping the shark for in terms of like character assassination is like Bumblebee, like literally like popping out a soda can from his junk. And then, you know, having it slam into someone's head and then proceeding to proverbially piss on them. It's like, yeah, it's, that's like, oh, haha, potty humor. But it's like, people wanted to see giant robot action, not weird, stupid, oh, look at funny robot gagging, funny robot gag of robot pissing on somebody. It's like, nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. I suppose the only people who would be interested in seeing a Transformers movie were teenagers or people who were already fans of the franchise. No, actually, that's a lie. Not even them. It was mostly teenagers and children, right? That would be the only audience, I would imagine. Anyways, but yeah, moving on.
Action. Or watch the first Transformers movie, which is the only good Transformers movie. I played the game on Veteran, and in my 8-hour playthrough, I never felt frustrated. So the difficulty was perfect, whether I was playing with bots or buddies. It's been 13 years since the original, and yet when you look at the gameplay side by side, Space Marine 2 looks like a true sequel. And I guess that's why it feels like such a throwback to a different era of gaming. The missions are very linear, and like Gears of War, Space Marine 2 follows what I like to call the amusement park formula. There's plenty of thrilling rides, set pieces, memorable moments that will provide some pure entertainment, but they're going to be about the same each time you go on the ride. So you may not come back to the amusement park day after day, but maybe a few years from now you'll come back and everything will feel fresh again. Space Marine 2 has some incredible art direction.
Only in Warhammer would you have a construction crane shaped like a skull.
Yep.
Works.
That is shaped like a skull. Wow.
It is shaped like a skull. I never noticed that detail until he pointed that out. But only in Warhammer. But he's not wrong. The funny thing about technology in Warhammer universe is that if it's not shaped like some type of humanoid thing, like a skull, like it's the technology is as flimsy as fuck, and the architects who make it, which is the Martians, by the way, like they don't think of practical means of making technology. They think of like the most absurd, convoluted ways of making technology, and as well as merging flesh with technology. I think one of the funniest things about that is simply like there's nothing that perfectly encapsulates that than the fact that when you're playing Darktide, when you're hacking into systems, you're not hacking into systems, you're interrogating them. You're interrogating systems. As if you're interrogating people, right? It's like the funniest thing. They have such a different approach to technology. And because they hate AI, because they hate because they're so adverse to artificial intelligence so goddamn much, they don't want a computer to handle anything. They want everything done by human hands. So much so that when people have to load giant shells into a fucking cannon, like they don't get like a robot to do it. They don't get they don't get anybody else to do it. No, they get the fucking grunts to do it. They either get like the people to do it by hand, or they get in big ass machines to do it themselves. You know, it's Warhammer is one of those franchises that's just like everything that needs doing is done by you, and if you don't, and if you're gonna leave everything to machines, well then you're a pussy, and you need to just do it by, you know, you just need to do it by your own hands, right? You know, you need. There's no one who's gonna get it done better and faster than you, right? You might as well just do it that way. Just do it that way, bro. Just do it that way. Anyways, I'm done. I'm done. But yeah, that's the funny thing about Warhammer. They do technology very differently here. Very differently. It's so futuristic and yet so lacking in standard convention. Standard basic, you know, just basic ass conveniences that you would expect in our modern day life, right?
Shaped like a skull.
Yep.
Works.
That is shaped like a skull. Wow. And in those moments between the intense visceral combat, you're treated to some fantastic skyboxes and set pieces.
This is an insane backdrop. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at
Oh
this.
yeah.
Glorious.
Swarms.
Beautiful. Beautifully terrifying.
I almost don't want to kill anything. I don't even know where I am half the time, but there's a giant bird who can slow time, and we got a bunch of tanks and soldiers, and let's fucking go. Let's go to war. We're going towards that big thing up there. See that? We're gonna shoot it.
Oh yeah, brother.
This scene was so epic. It was so badass. Just like, oh yeah, you're the center of all this nonsense, and you're going in to fucking like shoot up some shit. You know, like you just got this big old speech by Calicar. You know, like you're ready to go in with Papa Smurf to go smash all of these heretics, right? Fucking Thousand Sons aren't gonna know what hit them. You're gonna hit them so fast, they're gonna be convinced that they were flashbanged. They were literally hit so damn hard that they could not even process it. Anyways, yeah, it's this game has so many fucking set pieces, so many great set pieces. I don't know what else to say, man. It's just a great game. I cannot sell this game enough. I don't know if Actman could properly sell this game enough. It's just I would implore anyone to play this just so that way I could play it with them, and just so I have an excuse to play it. That's how much I like playing this game. I already have like over 100 hours in the game, for fuck's sake. Please play it.
Fucking kill! Despite Space Marine 2 coming across as just a big, dumb, loud video game, clearly a lot of effort went into the artistry behind it.
He just walks up and steps on the
Oh my god! Oh my
grabs the
god!
statue.
The best scene in the fucking game, let me tell you.
Oh my god! Oh my
grabs the
god!
statue.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
I love Dave, he's awesome.
It's hard to do my typical review with a game like this, because if I pointed out everything that's awesome, I'd just be saying, damn, that's cool. Wow, this is gorgeous and beautiful. And how many times can I say that, you know? One of my favorite parts happens near the end, where you fought these tougher enemies, the Hell Brutes, and you're walking through this tunnel when all of a sudden...
Oh,
Whoa.
look, the boys here. Our backup's here.
Wow. I don't know, man. They're everywhere. Everywhere. Yeah, let's go get them.
Murder the biggest thing in the game and just turn you in like, where's more?
Lead me to the slaughter.
Jesus. The game has a decent variety of primary and secondary firearms, as well as melee weapons. There are some basic combos that are different for each melee weapon, but nothing too crazy. And that's fine, because I'm not here to play Soul Calibur. I'm here to smash things with a fucking Warhammer. You can seamlessly switch between third-person shooting and hack-and-slash melee combat. There is a parry and blocking system. Sometimes enemies will lunge at you from afar, and Titus can grab their bitch ass, slam them into the ground, or kill them in any number of ways. Timing is pretty generous, and this game plays great on controller. It's really easy to pick up and play. And these glory kills really highlight how badass the Space Marines are. Fast, brutal, efficient. You could tell a lot of time was spent animating these glory kills to give players a real sense of pride and accomplishment when defeating bosses. Most games can't handle this many things on screen, and I rarely noticed any frame dips or technical issues. A horde mode in this game would go pretty fucking hard. And would you
That was, I did realize upon further looking back that on one of their roadmaps, they did promise a horde mode at the end of the last season. I went back and I noticed that they promised a horde mode at the end of the last season. That's actually very awesome. It's like they understand that once they cap everything off, what better way to cap off the experience than just give people like an excuse to just continuously slaughter and slaughter until there's nothing left to slaughter, you know? I mean, I can't think of anything better, right? I'm also interested to see what the new enemy type, variants or faction or type that we're going to get. That's going to be pretty awesome. They have yet to introduce us with any new information as of yet. They did drop their latest updates as part of their little, like a roadmap. But otherwise, you know, like, I'm very interested to see what they do next. Fingers crossed if they actually get that far.
frame dips or technical issues? A horde mode in this game would go pretty fucking hard. And would you look at that? They already have one planned for a future update. It's like they know how to make a fun video game. These moments where you're holding out against wave after wave of Tyranids are some of my favorites. It reminds me of those wall defense sections from Armed and Dangerous, if anybody still remembers that game. Between missions, you'll head back to the Battle Barge, the game's hub world, and although it's basic, there's a lot of environmental storytelling that lore fanatics will greatly appreciate and notice. Now, because the combat is so simple and straightforward, this kind of game would start to get boring and monotonous if it lasted too long. And while it does get slightly repetitive near the end, the mechanics never lose their gimmicky appeal. With games like this that lean so heavily into the spectacle, you can lose the magic if it goes on for too long. I might be done playing Space Marine 2 for now, but the idea of new factions being introduced means that I'll likely come back at some point. In a video game industry where so much is expected of every new release, when leadership constantly interferes with the creative process, it's refreshing that a game like Space Marine 2 can come out and be successful. It's a testament to the beauty in simplicity. The campaign is an amusement park filled with rides that will get your heart pumping and make you feel alive. While most modern titles emphasize PvP to keep players coming back for more, Space Marine 2 is doing what Overwatch should have done. Prioritizing PvE? Nature is healing. The operations are the dessert after the main course.
Prioritizing PvE? Nature is healing. That's a statement. I've never played Overwatch, okay? So I don't know what he means by that, but it sounds like people were really PO'd about the fact that they never added a PvE to Overwatch. And honestly, I can understand that. I kind of wish they added a privacy mode with better AI and shit in Darktide, but you know what? I'm not gonna complain. At least most of the people you fucking run with are not talking, and when they do talk, they're not dickheads. So, at least as far as I've experienced, so yeah, as long as you're peening and you're doing your part, they have no reason to have beef with you, as far as I'm concerned.
PvE? Nature is healing. The operations are the dessert after the main course. The game opens up in ways I wish the campaign did. Since there are 6 classes to choose from with different abilities and roles to fill, it adds a small but important layer of strategy. What I don't like is how certain classes don't have access to primary or melee weapons. I feel like that's unnecessary given how limited the sandbox can feel at times. Further restricting your arsenal feels like we're not trying It adds a small but important layer of strategy. What I don't like is how certain classes don't have access to primary or melee weapons. I feel like that's
What the fuck is this? Everybody else sees this, right? There's a grenade. There's a grenade function right here. There's an option to switch out grenades. What the actual fuck? What do you mean there's an option to switch out grenades? I've never seen that option. Wait, what the hell is this? Veterancy level? I don't remember it being called Veterancy level. Battle Brother, Sergeant. Is this the PvP Armory Hall? Is that what I'm looking at? The PvP Armoring Hall? That's probably what I'm looking at, 'cause there's not any of that in Operations. Anyways, I'm sorry I kind of interrupted the video there. I had to see that again.
What I don't like is how certain classes don't have access to primary or melee weapons. I feel like that's unnecessary given how limited the sandbox can feel at times. Further restricting your arsenal feels like we're not trying hard enough to purge the heretics. There's also a Left 4 Dead 2 type director that makes repeat playthroughs of each operation a little different. You level up each class and weapon separately, and along the way you'll unlock new talents, skills, and upgraded weapons. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed with the rewards. A lot of the bonuses and perks feel superficial, like do 10% more damage with your primary weapon. Stuff like that is not super exciting, doesn't radically change damage with your a lot of talents and a little different. You level up each class and weapon director that makes repeat playthroughs of each operation a little different.
Huh. There is a director for the game. I did not know that. That would kind of make sense, but that also asks an interesting question. Does Darktide have that? Because, I mean, Darktide is the closest thing to Left 4 Dead 2 that I've ever seen. So, you know, like, does Darktide 2 also have an AI that also carefully scripts new, you know, things to throw at players? I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Different. You level up each class and weapon separately, and along the way you'll unlock new talents, skills, and upgraded weapons. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed with the rewards. A lot of the bonuses and perks feel superficial, like do 10% more damage with your primary weapon. Stuff like that is not super exciting, doesn't radically change my playstyle, especially as a Vermintide 2 simp, where I've come to really love the progression and customization of that game, allowing players to unlock better weapons, gear.
I mean, I can't speak for the Vermintide comparison, but he definitely does have a bit of a point. You know, like, the guns do have, like, small upgrades over time. You know, I can see why some people would not like that. And I certainly don't care for it either, but this is a game that's very much about the action. I would argue that the action spectacle of it would kind of get eroded a bit if weapons could do suddenly a lot more than they should be, right? It's not like an RPG where you're constantly getting the highest and more increase in terms of stats. You know, you have to really think about, like, what's going to be great for the gameplay loop that we have on hand, you know, because you're going to be doing this for skill reasons more so than you are going to be for I need to deal as much damage as humanly possible reasons, right? You want to both feel badass, but you want to feel good doing the badass thing, right? It wouldn't feel good if you could suddenly run up to a fucking random ass fucking 1,000 Sun Chaos fucking Space Marine, and then just slash him once with a knife, for example, and then he explodes into dust, right? That just kind of ruined the experience, right? You know, this game tries to sell you on being like a powerful Space Marine that has to claw his way through shit, right? You know, he has to literally hack and slash his way through all of the nonsense in front of him. You know, you have to really give you the gringy, gritty feel of the experience while simultaneously feeling fucking amazing while accomplishing things that most people would probably, even especially in this universe, would have a hard time dealing with. You know, a Carnifex fucking wrecks you in the first half of the game, but then over time you build yourself up and you get used to the gameplay loop enough to where, like, when you fight it again, you're like, I can take it this time. I can fucking murder you. And I have 2 AI companions to do it with. Or 2 friends to do it with. You're fucking dead. So, yeah. It's very much like you still have to emphasize the careful balance with this game.
change my playstyle, especially as a Vermintide 2 simp, where I've come to really love the progression and customization of that game. Allowing players to unlock better weapons, gear, and armor to tackle increasingly difficult challenges is a great way to add some replayability. And for some, simply unlocking new cosmetics and armor sets, showing them off, that'll likely be enough incentive for people to replay these operations. What's also cool is the PvE is directly tied in with the events of the campaign and the main narrative. For example, at the end, when you have to rotate all the obelisks, Titus and his crew handle one, while another group of Space Marines handles another. So you get to play through the same event from two different perspectives. And I wish more games did this. Yeah, imagine playing as an elite in Halo, wouldn't that... Yeah, that was pretty fucking sick, wasn't it? Space Marine 2 also includes a 6v6 PvP multiplayer.
He's not
Same
wrong.
classes, weapons, and its own separate progression system. To say this is bare
Okay, yeah, it
bones
was a
would be
PvP.
an insult to the skeletons of all the heretics I killed. Currently, there are 3 maps and 3 modes, bringing new meaning to the phrase, starved for content.
Please, sir. I want some more.
What?
The multiplayer is crossplay with PC, which is nice, but you and your friends can't play it together unless you're all on the same platform. So it's not that nice. I would have to play that solo.
That stinks.
That's balls.
That is quite balls. Like PvE, the classes are meant to fulfill a certain role, but even in multiplayer, there's not much thought or strategy in how you utilize each role's unique abilities. The classes feel like they were designed for a PvE experience, so it becomes rather mindless when fighting other players. Shoot the guys, capture the point, rinse and repeat. There's very little in the way of creative playmaking outside of the jetpack class, and there's really not much to say about the multiplayer beyond that. Oh, wow. He just dropped a bomb on me. That's a pretty cool tactic. You might be getting the impression that I think it's trash, but no, it's decent fun. I didn't buy Space Marine 2 expecting a robust multiplayer with a consistent live service business model. I bought it for the campaign, to fuck around with my buddies in PvE. So this severe lack of content isn't a deal breaker, especially since they have a roadmap. I mean, it's disappointing, but in a way, it's kind of satisfying that the multiplayer feels tacked on. And to be fair, it's not like Space Marine 2 is some staple franchise with an extensive checklist of features, game modes, and content that hardcore fans expect at release. This isn't Halo or Call of Duty, Gears of War, or Doom.
Let me hear that again. I'm trying to fit all that into my head because I was confused by that statement.
Player feels tacked on. And to be fair, it's not like for the campaign, to fuck around with my buddies in PvE. So this severe lack of content isn't a deal breaker, especially since they have a roadmap. I mean, it's disappointing, but in a way, it's kind of satisfying that the multiplayer feels tacked on. And to be fair, it's not like Space Marine 2 is some staple franchise with an extensive checklist of features, game modes, and content that hardcore fans expect at release. This isn't Halo or Call of Duty, Gears of War, or Doom. This is a sequel to a cult classic from 2011. I'm just happy they made it at all. So I can give Saber Interactive a pass on this since I didn't really have any expectations. Now there is a $40 Seasons Pass? Now that's a phrase that triggers me. It takes me right back to 2017. But luckily the Seasons Pass only contains cosmetic content. Speaking of, the armor customization is surprisingly fleshed out. Warhammer has a ton of different factions, armor sets, and creative designs that they can pull inspiration from and monetize the game beyond its initial asking price. You can even customize like 8 different pieces of armor and mix and match as you unlock them. You can even save presets to swap out your drip with ease. Wow, it's like you don't even need to separate and lock out armor sets and pieces based on some like stupid core system. You mean
I hate every game that does this, by the way. Oh yeah, let's just lock all of the tints behind like a very specific type of like color system, right? You'll get color patterns instead of the colors themselves, and then you won't be able to mix and match your colors the way you want them to. We'll just give you a color pattern that really like sells you on a different color palette style, right? We'll palette your armor for you. You don't have to create unique color designs for your armor. I don't hate it as much I don't hate it as much as I fucking hate the fact that they will sell you individual colors. They will sell you individual colors in some games. Like, for example, the First Descendant sells you individual colors, and then once you use that color, that's it. You can't use it anymore. Fuck you. But anyways, yeah. I hate games that do that shit.
And lock out armor sets and pieces based on some like stupid core system. You mean I can just buy the armor and wear it and look cool? I'd forgotten how simple things used to be. Space Marine 2's multiplayer isn't something I'm going to spend that much time on, given how basic it is on a fundamental level, but who knows what it might become a year or two down the line. Vermintide 2 has had consistent support for like 7 years. That game has so much content, I'm still playing it to this day, and there's a chance Space Marine 2 could achieve that same type of longevity. In conclusion, the 40K franchise is massive beyond reason, and there are so many different games it can be hard to decide which one to play, but Space Marine 2 stands out amongst the list of 40K video game entries. It provides a familiar, comforting feeling for gamers like me who grew up in the 90s when priorities were different. But even if you aren't a withered, aging husk like myself, it's still a fucking badass macho game on par with Gears of War and Doom. In fact, you can even see how Gears of War may have been inspired by Warhammer. So if you're somebody who's looking for a gritty, macho game that'll take you back to the days of the Xbox 360, look no further than Space Marine 2. It doesn't get better than this. The game has a few shortcomings, and I wouldn't consider it Game of the Year material, but that doesn't change how much fun I had with my 15 hours in it. At a time when video games feel needlessly complicated, Space Marine 2 thrives on its simplicity. It's like a roller coaster, man. You don't need to think, just sit back and enjoy the ride. And that is why Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 is so awesome. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did and subscribe to the Act Man for more awesome content. Also, huge shout out to all my patrons. I'm going to start shouting you guys out more in videos at the end. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can do so. Link is also in the description. This one goes out to the acting experts: Alexander Murphy, Jake Hall, Flavio, A Screaming Cloaker, A2A X Phoenix, Anubis 17, Corey, Dr. Muller, EJ LeBlanc, Jazan Heitman, Jose San.
And that was the Ackman's take on Space Marines 2 and why he thought it was so awesome. It was honestly a pretty great video. I agreed with every point he's made. He's made some weird comparisons here and there, and made some interesting ones at the same time. But, you know, like, I found that his overall opinion of the game is honestly pretty much the same that I have, which is that it's really fucking great. And while I don't know about, like, I don't disagree with his sentiments about, like, you know, like, oh, it's kind of like a game that you could just, like, have a one and done if you want, and, you know, games were so great when they used to be that simple back then. It's like, yeah, that's true. But, you know, I do like a game that does evolve itself. Like, I'm not the kind of person who's going to look at a game and be like, you know, it'd be really great if you would just stop adding more content. Because I'm not that kind of person. You know, like, I think there's games that have too much content, like fucking Assassin's Creed Odyssey. God, that game had a shit ton of content. A lot of superfluous content. But anyways, I think that when it comes to adding more fun, more playability, more shit to do in a game, absolutely. I think that adding more to the experience is as any good of a reason as any to play a game, right? Or to want to continue to add to the game, or just add, or just, you know, make the game better, more fuller. Like, let's look at a good example of this. Warframe. Warframe is a great example of taking a game that people like, that has a core formula that people really understand and really can get behind, and then just elevating that and elevating that and elevating that until it's something else entirely, right? You know, like, Warframe used to be like this basic bitch-ass game where you just like, okay, you're a ninja in space, all right? You go do missions, you go kill the thing, take this, assassinate this guy, maybe do some other things. That's it. You do the things and then you go home. That's it. All right? You go back to the ship. I mean, back in the day, your ship was literally limited to like a small, like the small ass piloting room and the fucking message board. That was the culmination of the experience, was the small ship piloting room, and then the goddamn like a message board and a few other things, right? As well as a mission tracker for like the basic level bitch story content that there was at the time. And then there was also the galaxy mapping system, and oh my god, the galaxy mapping system was fucking insane. Just like, what the fuck did anything do? It's like, where does this even go? How does this work? Where the fuck even am I? And I swear to God, some of their maps were AI generated because goddamn, those corridors felt like you could get lost in them for years, goddamn it, years. Especially on those like infested ass what was it? Those infested Nintendo fucking space stations or ships, right? You know, the ones that are that infested the fucking, what the fuck? I don't know. They're not called Tenno. Whatever the fuck those people were, who are basically like the dead species that that everybody knows the technology of and is kind of aping their technology to some extent, right? Those ships were so convolutedly and were often the biggest subject of like the absolute labyrinthian level of map design I had ever seen. Like at some points during my experience playing Warframe. And let me tell you, okay, as someone who's played Warframe in high school, it looks nothing like it did when I played it in high school. It looks nothing like it. Looks fucking nothing like it. I had a basic bitch computer. I was not running that shit as well or as optimally as I wanted to, but my god, that game was fun. But, you know, it looks nothing like the game that I played back in high school, man. It looks like leagues ahead of anything I played back in high school. And that's honestly pretty impressive. That's honestly amazing. And, you know, the developers who made Warframe, you know, like, they did this for the sole purpose of wanting to make a game that wasn't trying to penny pinch, you know? Like, they wanted to make a game that wasn't going to, you know, like, that wasn't going to take your buck. It was going to give you the most bang for your buck, right? You know, because there are people who actually give a shit about wanting people to actually enjoy their game and have fun with it. So much so that when they did add a loot crate system into the game, they're like, you know what? We're going to take this out because we realize that there's a few people who are abusing it to the point to where like they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on it, and we're not going to do that. We're not going to be the subject or even the host of people being unable to make logical decisions and just ruining their lives, right? We're going to be the big people. We're going to be the big men, and we're going to take out this feature because we realize that some people just can't be trusted to not abuse the system. So we're just going to take it out, and we're going to give people like more options, better options, honestly, because anything that isn't behind randomized rewards is honestly a better option, right? And we're going to give people better options, and that's going to be great. You know? No one has to suddenly have to sell their house and become destitute because they decided to spend a shit ton of packs in a fucking video game, right? I like how this is a 30 minutes, no, not even that, a 23-minute video, and I literally spent an hour just ranting and raving in between all of that. But anyways, yeah, this has been the Actman's video on the Space Marines 2 and why it's awesome. I don't think I shielded, did I? I don't think I shielded. I could not shield anything if I wanted to. I'm not a salesman. But anyways, I'm terrible at selling people shit. But the Actman, you know, he's a great guy. He's someone who has a lot of good opinions on the internet, especially about specific talking points. You know, like, I often sometimes find myself agreeing with him all the time on many issues than I do find disagreements with any of them. Like, I've never outright just been like, you know what, that's an awful take, Actman. that's kind of a really stupid take. I can't trust you anymore, you know, like, or damn, I never knew you were like that, Ackman. I did not know you were you felt that way about certain things. That makes me question a few other things now. You know, like I've never heard an opinion from him specifically that I've specifically had an umbrage with, right? And I think most of his opinions are very based. I think that his opinions are honestly very based. They're very agreeable, and they come from a place of common sense. You know, like you're just like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, that's true. Oh, that's an interesting example or a way to look at things. You know, like he has a lot of great ways to explain to people why something is awesome. Something that a shitter like me could not possibly do, even if his life depended on it. But you get my point, right? You know, Actman, great channel, great YouTuber. I would recommend this man highly. You want to go and find someone who's got some pretty good gaming content or has a lot of discussions around certain topics on the interwebs, I would vote you go and take a look at this man. All right? In fact, I should probably, you know what? I'll make an entirely separate video. I'm going to do what I did with Rogue Trader, all right? And I'm going to make an added point, an added video to go at the beginning of this one that's basically like, disclaimer, please go look at the Actman's original video before you watch this one, right? And mind you, I have enough respect for people on the internet to know that, you know, I'm not going to step on anybody's toes, at least not intentionally. So you're not going to see this video for at least a couple of weeks after it's aired. It's only been out for 4 days as of recording of this video. So you're not going to see this fucking video until at least a couple more weeks down the road, all right? Because I just have that much respect for people on the internet. Something that I wish everybody else would do, you know, have more respect for other people's personal space and privacy, right? I could just upload this video and just be like, yeah, you know, just get all of the attention for this video because it's new and because people like the Actman and because it's a random shitter on the internet reacting to the Actman's video talking about dumb shit, right? No. You know, I'm not a terrible person. At least I don't try to be like the kind of person who likes to gamify or just, you know, is a grifter. I'm not the biggest grifter, and I don't really want to grift either. It's like, at least not the negative connotations of the word, you know? I want to make games that people, you know, like, I just want to make, well, not make games. I want to make videos about games that I think are great and that people should enjoy more, right? That's what we should all be doing. You know, that's what we should all be doing, just finding games that we all like and we would all like to enjoy. And that we all think would be fun. Listen to people shoot the shit about why the game could be fun and why it's fun, and, you know, maybe engage in something new and something you haven't seen before. Anyways, I'm getting a little off the beaten path here. I'm kind of like extending this video longer than necessary by just kind of jumping off from this and talk about random shit, but, you know, that's, again, this is part of the course, all right? When you're on the Naven Gaming channel, all right, you're gonna get digressions, you're gonna get side questing of magnitudes you've never seen on another channel, because I can talk for hours. I could talk for literal hours, okay? I could pace around my room and talk for literal hours about dumb shit that nobody would ever think of, because here's the funny thing. I think, and I have a more resounding thought process and methodical way of thinking when I just say the things out loud, right? I think better when I am saying it aloud for myself, all right? That's how I function, all right? So you're going to get a lot of that. You're going to get a lot of that side questing and digressing on this channel. And I hope you're prepared for that, because I sure as fucking hell am not. I am sure as hell ain't ready to hear everybody complain about, like, you talk too much, you talk about too much bullshit, you know, like, I don't care about this thing, you know, like, why can't you just, like, talk about something else, or just watch a different video, or just watch the video in general. It's just like, or just play the game, you know? Anyways, I just can't help it. But no, this time, for sure. Thank you all so much for watching. I shall see you all in the next video. It might be another reaction video, it might not, but, you know, it's neither here or there. It's simple content enough. But anyways, thank you again. Bye-bye.